Please go for it. Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Mosaic podcast. Today, I have a real treat for you. One of the reasons why I love this world that we're living in, and this podcast in particular, is because every day I find pieces in my mosaic that I never even knew were there. By connecting to somebody who connects me to somebody else, something opens up and doors open up that are just absolutely beautiful. I did a HIT talk, a talk on hope, inspiration, and transformation. They were 8-minute talks that 8 people gave. My guest today was one of the people that gave a talk with me on that. And in listening to him speak, and in hearing what he was speaking about, and then in watching the film that he created, I was so moved. Because in the world that we live in a world that has lost a lot of its innocence. And to find something that comes across as innocent and sweet, that comes across and really touches the something inside of us that we all want, it so inspired me. And so I contacted him. We became friends. We WhatsApped, and I said, would you be willing to come on my podcast? And he was kind enough to say he would. Let me tell you a little bit about him, so it's not me just rambling on and on and on. My guest today is Jonathan Augustin, a English sounding name for a beautifully Indian man. He wrote a film. He is the writer, director, and producer of a film called The Lift Boy. He was born in Bombay and educated in Bournemouth. His debut film, The Lift Boy, released in theaters across India, UAE, and Taiwan in 2019, and was about to spread out into lots of other places before something by the name of COVID-19 came. What might have been a devastation for him turned into a beautiful thing, because he was acquired by the streaming rights were acquired by Netflix. And now, instead of having to go to a theater to see it, it is available to you right in your living room. I'm going to have the link to Netflix in the show notes. I'm going to have the trailer for the movie in the show notes. This is a movie you do not want to miss. It will leave you with a sense of inspiration, innocence. It's a type of movie that we want to see with our family. It's the type of movie we want to know exists. It's the type of movie that brings inspiration to people. Let me just tell you a few of the comments that have been said about it. A feel-good coming-of-age film with such a sweet and sensitive tone. If you want to leave a theater in a positive way, you cannot miss this movie. Another person writes, The Lift Boy is a beautiful, engaging, entertaining journey indeed. Don't miss it. Another one writes, it has the pride of literacy, the glow of hard work, and the fragrance of compassion. It is very rare that you come out of a film smiling like you smile with this one. There are millions more, hundreds, maybe not millions, maybe I'm exaggerating, but there's a lot of reviews of how beautiful this is. Rather than me talk your ear off all day about it, I have Jonathan with me today, who is the writer, director, and producer of the film. Jonathan, it is such a big honor to have you on the Mosaic podcast. Thank you for being with us today. Welcome.
Hi, Danny. Thank you so much for having me and the lovely introduction. It's amazing. You make me feel so good. I feel important and big. I feel like Steve Jobs coming on stage. That's the kind of introduction you give me. Thank you. Thank you. Or like Baz Luhrmann coming on stage, or like a big hotshot Hollywood director coming on stage. Thank you. Thank you.
You are a big hotshot Hollywood director. You are to have your premiere film get the accolades that this has gotten is unheard of. There's so many people that try and put together a movie, and just it dies on the film floor. And so congratulations to you for making something that touches. It's so innocent. It's good. tell us about Lift Boy. Normally I go into a whole different way, but just tell us
Yeah.
about the movie, because I want people to get it and know that the trailer will be here and the links to
Yeah.
everything will be here. But give us your idea of what happened, what inspired you to do this.
So the lift boy, is the story of this young boy who's forced to work in this posh building in Mumbai as a lift boy when his bedwinning father falls ill. And the film deals with a young boy, so any human being's four stages: denial, acceptance, evolution, and mastery. So the lift boy was inspired by an encounter of mine with a real life lift boy on 4th March 2015. I was working in television, right? I was about 23 years old, and I had my day off. So I go to this movie theater to watch a movie. I go to the shopping mall, I park my vehicle, I get into the lift. So in Bombay, we have this concept of lift boys, which is lift operators. They basically press buttons in the lift. That's their job. Uh, and I enter the lift, and there are a few people coming into the lift, and there's a lady walking and taking her own time. Her family's already in the lift. So this guy puts the lift on hold for a while. The lady finally comes in, the lift goes on to the next floor. A guy walks into the lift and he blasts the lift boy. He blasts the daylights of this guy because this guy kept the lift on hold for a long time. Even I was getting irritated because I was getting slightly late for my movie, but I didn't react. It was my day off. I'm like, I'm not going to simply get rattled by small things and ruin my day. I'll just stand there, let him take his own sweet time and do what he has to do. This guy comes and he blasts the lift boy. He also abused him in Hindi, our local language. And this lift boy looks at him and with a very monotonous voice, with a lot of warmth in his eyes, in a very flat way, he says, "Sir, मैं सिर्फ button दबाता हूँ. Sir, I only press buttons."
Wow.
He said that in Hindi because he's an Indian guy, and he probably did not know English. And that guy didn't say anything. The lift went on to the next floor. That guy got off. My floor came. I walked off the lift, and I went on and got on with my day. But for some reason, this guy's face stuck in my head. I couldn't. And the way his eyes were very peculiar. I've not seen the guy again after that. I tried to look for him after that. I wasn't able to find him. When I completed the script and I made the film, I tried to go search for him. I wasn't able to find him. But his image is still there in my head. And those words that he said, "So I only press buttons." I'm like, I'm going to make a movie called The Lift Boy. And it's going to be a metaphor for life, wherein life is like a lift. Sometimes it takes you up and sometimes it takes you down, depending on the buttons you press, aka choices you make. So push the right buttons. And the whole idea of the lift boy was there's a lift boy in each one of us. Because when I've been stuck in places that I don't want to be, I was doing television. I was 23 years old. I was working in television. I wanted to be a motion picture director, right? And I was doing television. I didn't like my job. And yeah, I was stuck in a rut. I was totally stuck in a lift. And I made this choice. I'm like, I've got this great idea. And it's the universe telling me this. It's not my genius, or it's not the universe gave it to me. I've done nothing. I was just there, right place, right time. And I've got a shot of the lifetime now. I have to make this. So I quit my job in television after a month, wherein I slept over it. I did sleep over it. I gave it a few days. Within 3 days, I went to my boss and said, "I'm quitting." He said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to make a movie." He's like, "Do you have a script?" Who's a producer? Who's a studio? He's a typical, filmy guy. He's a typical movie guy. He's 15 questions. Who's the cast? Who's just. Imagine Ari Gold from Entourage talking to you. He was that, bombarding you with questions. And I'm like, I have no clue. I don't even have a script. I have an idea. And he's like, Jonathan, every jerk off in this town has an idea. Can you execute it? I'm like, yes, I can execute it. I'm going to first write the script, and then I'm going to go make the film. So exactly a month later, I quit my job. I started this beautiful journey of writing the script. But before I started writing the script, I was always making notes. I was creating characters. I was trying to summarize all the experiences I had in my life. So if you look at The Lift Boy, if you watch The Lift Boy on Netflix, it's streaming worldwide in 190 countries, so you can watch it. It's in English. A majority of the film's in English. The Hindi bits are subtitled, so you can enjoy the film. The English is fairly audible. It's decent, and so if you look at The Lift Boy, we've all been through that, and it talks about universal emotions, and it's very personal. Every character in the film is based on personal encounters of mine with similar people. So I don't think The Lift Boy is a movie. It's just like my life summarized in a film. It's my first film. So yeah, it's basically 24, 25 years of my life. I was 24 when I started making it, 23, 24 when I started making it, and now I'm 29, when it finally went on Netflix. And
Wow.
so it's been a long journey. But I've been wanting to make films since I've been 10 years old. So it's been a constant journey of failure. The only thing I've done is I failed forward, because even the characters I've dealt with, like my boss who I was working with, very smart guy, but the amount of questions he bombarded me with, I almost had to break down. I'm like, man, do you have a studio? Who's going to fund it? Who's going to do this? I'm like, I have no clue, but I like this idea. I'm obsessed with it because I'm not able to let go of it. And it's an opportunity of the lifetime, and I cannot leave this, and I have to fulfill this.
So
Right? It's my calling. Yeah.
let me jump in for a minute, because first of all, you can feel your enthusiasm, you can feel your passion as you're speaking, you can feel it bubbling up in your heart and your soul.
Thank you.
For those people that are listening that have always dreamed about doing something, but they get the Ari Golds of Entourage, or the boss that you have that barrage them with questions, and they feel like, why in the world would I do this? I don't have the wherewithal to do that. You've
Yeah.
never made a film before. You've never produced a film before. You've never found all that stuff before. Where did you get the courage to say, this is just something I feel so strongly that I just have to do it, and no matter what anybody says to me? Because so often we have great ideas, but we let the world around us paint us into a box that we can't get out of, because
Yeah.
that they speak to our fear rather than to our hope. Where did you get the courage
Yeah.
to just go forward past your fear and into your hope?
Danny, I'll be honest with you. It just happened, right? It's the universe. It's God. It's something. It's not. It's beyond human. There's no. But I'm genuinely a very positive guy. I genuinely feel that there is hope in this world. There's goodness in this world, and I'm a strong believer that if you do good and you do something with utmost purity, so the minute you're corrupted by the commerce of thing of your venture, everything goes for a toss. A lot of people I've met many Fortune 500 CEOs and multi-billionaires and few millionaires, uh, a few billionaires and many multi-millionaires, and I asked them what inspired you, and they're like, listen, we saw a problem and we went to solve it. We felt that if we solve this problem, it will impact people, it'll add value to people's lives, and then the byproduct of that is you make a bit of money. So in the Lift Boy, I genuinely felt that this. I was obsessed with the story. I was obsessed with the craft of filmmaking, but I didn't find a story I was obsessed with. But when I came across the story of the Lift Boy, when it just organically came out of me, I was obsessed with it. And I told myself, no matter what, I'm going to see this through, because no matter what the outcome, it's going to uplift my life, it's going to elevate my life. But at the same time, it's going to, maybe it has the possibility of changing other people's life, and it'll infuse them with hope and optimism. And that's my masterpiece, that's my contribution to this world. And maybe I'll only make one movie, and after that I'll probably work in a grocery store, or I'll probably work in the stock market, or I'll probably work in insurance. I have no clue, but I said I'm going to make this film with all my heart, right? And I'm going to see it through, no matter how long it takes. And I'm going to keep failing, but I'm going to keep failing forward. And it's not rocket science. It's not open heart surgery, right? It's you're making a movie. You're telling something very personal. And I know I've not done it before, but it's like, if you ask the guy who founded Facebook, hey, have you founded Facebook before? You'd be like, I made some other websites. Mark Zuckerberg, he said, I made
Right.
some other websites, but Facebook was my first website. So you never know what's going to be. I think just try it, and what's the worst that'll happen? You'll fail miserably, and the next time you do something, you'll make it better,
Yeah.
right? And that's how I did it. That's how I went about it.
I completely understand, because what happened when I wrote the Mosaic, which is the
Yeah,
book that I wrote, it was
yeah,
something I wasn't planning to write. That book, I had written another book that was called V2, which is
yeah,
what do you do with the second version of your life, because I was
yeah,
getting to
yeah.
the age where people retire and then
Mm,
just sort of die.
mm,
And so I sent it to a friend of mine, and that friend said, Danny, this is a great book, the ideas are fresh and exciting, but this isn't your
mm,
book. And I said, what are you talking about? They said, well, this is a self-help book, you're a storyteller, why don't you write a story?
mm,
And I said, well,
mm,
this is sort of my legacy. What do you want me to do? Write a story? And she said, yeah, I want you to write a fable.
mm.
And I fought her for about a minute and a half, until I realized, in telling a story, what happens. And this is the beauty to me of Lift Boy also. In the simple telling of a story, and telling a story that is universal, that everybody can relate to, the minute it leaves your hand, somebody else hears it not quite exactly the way you hear it. They start to
Yeah,
integrate themselves into the story.
yeah,
And the story is so innocent and beautiful. But in my process, I hadn't listened well enough to what the characters were saying to me. And they taught me that everything in the world is talking to us. And in making it, I was trying to write what I wanted them to say.
Hmm.
And they came to me like we were on a Zoom call here. And each one of them said, "We don't want to say what you're saying for us to say. We want you to say what we're telling you to say." And in that process now, when people read it back to me or I read it again, it's as if it's a fresh new experience. So I'm wondering, how did the process of you writing this story, had you ever written a story like this before?
No.
Okay.
So
So how did
I've
that
written,
process come to you?
I've written scripts before. I've written scripts that never got made. I've never seen the light of day, right? And that's been a constant setback. And the reason they never saw the light of day was probably because a wrong time. Maybe I was not as obsessed as the material, as I was not as obsessed with the story and the material as I was with the Lift Boy. Secondly, I was probably a bit corrupt by the idea of making a film. I was too corrupted by Hollywood and the glam and the glitz and the it was very cosmetic initially, right?
Yeah.
Because you see, when I watched Rocky and I enjoyed the film, it was pure. I was a kid, I was 10 years old, and I experienced something very beautiful, right? And I told myself I have to make a film that is true and honest, and sincere, and I shouldn't get corrupt. So I didn't use any formatting, any fancy software. I wrote it on Word document, right? The font was the font that I liked and I found pretty, not the screenplay font. I didn't follow any rule, first act, second act, third act. I just wrote organically what came to me, right? And I said, okay, there's this guy and he's a vagabond and this is his father's a lift man and his father falls really ill and he's forced to take up the job that he always resented. And how would he react to it? So it just happened organically. So it's just like, waking up every morning, looking at that page, blank page, and having this desire to complete the story and see where it goes. Because even I was curious, I was discovering the character and I was talking to the character and I was building an equation with these fictional characters in my head. And you kind of you become a bit delusional, when you're doing this, because you become so isolated and you become so contained and self-sufficient that you dissociate with the world and you go into this la la land. And I was going through that phase. It was a good 6 months of me living in this fictional world, which was very real. And I started talking. The characters started talking to me. I started talking to the characters, and it just flew organically.
So
But
pause,
it's a
pause there.
process.
Do me a favor, pause there for a minute, because you're one of the few people that I've ever heard say exactly the process that I went through. And
Yeah,
that's why I think immediately when I heard you speak at Hit Talks, I
yeah.
just like fell in love with you. And then when I watched
Thank
your
you.
movie, I fell in love with you even more because I felt that process was there.
Yeah,
Well, for people who think we're both crazy, when we say we talk to the characters, we talk to the
yeah,
person in our script, we listen to what they're saying. What's
yeah.
your process for that? Can you tell me how you did that? What does it mean? What did people think when you told them you're listening to the characters that you're creating? They're fictitious characters. They're people, things that you made up. How did they
Yeah.
speak to you?
So normally you write the character and you create a situation, right? The first situation is his father falling sick, right? And he's supposed to take up that job. And you just put yourself in his shoes and, you just start, you imagine what he feels and you start reacting to it. And then again, you got to come out and say, okay, this is how he's reacting. And you make note of it. And how would the father react to that, right? And again, it's based on your own relationships, your own interpersonal. I tell you what, across the world, it's universal. Father-son relationships are it's one of the most beautiful relationship, but at the same time the most conflicted relationship. You'll
Yeah.
always have this, a bit of banter there. And so yeah, and it's waking up every day, we're looking at that blank page. And when you look at the blank page, right, I'm a very I'm I like achieving what I set out to achieve. And that blank page kind of gives you a lot of anxiety. And that anxiety kind of drives you to, like, because you wake up in the morning, you're writing and you finish 10 pages, and then suddenly you hit writer's block, which is totally fine. But keep at it, I mean, still look at that page, you scribble, you sit, you watch some videos on YouTube, you just walk around, have a cup of tea, but stay at it, commit your 8 hours, 7 hours, 6 hours a day to writing. And there'll be days where you write nothing, but it will come. For 1 week, you may not write. And I've had those days where I've been looking at blank pages and the characters are just in my head and he's stuck. I don't know where to take him next. And then automatically, when you're sleeping, the character will talk to you. Some small snippet will come into your head. and you will actually get up and write that.
So do me a favor,
And then in the next 3 days, you'll have the most productive time. Yeah.
do me a favor, dive into
Sorry,
that
go.
moment. No, you're perfect. I just want to
Yeah.
do me a favor
Yeah.
and dive into that moment, because most of us get to that place that writers call writer block, but we can call it business block. We can call it a creative block. We can talk innovation block. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter where we are
Yeah.
in our lives. We get to that place where we feel comfortable, where we feel blocked, where we're scared to take the next step, where we don't know how it's going to happen. That moment, that pivot point, those are the things that I'm super interested in sharing with people.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
moment where suddenly writer's block shifts
Yeah.
to intuition and creativity, and whether it's in a dream and a sleep, or whether it's you're walking around.
Yeah.
Can you isolate that moment and try and define that moment for people?
So yeah, it's not going to be magical. It's not cinematic. It's not magical at all. It's very organic. It's like a normal day, right? But you will have that excitement, right? So it's you spend 7 days and you start, we validate ourselves, and you stop validating yourself, and then you seek external validation, right? And when nothing's happening, see, the most important validation that we as human beings need is our own validation.
Yes.
Right? And that's the first thing. You need to validate yourself. And when I'm not writing, I ask myself, what am I living for? What am I doing? Am I a waste of space? These thoughts come across my mind. I'm like, oh, what a waste of life. I'm looking at this blank screen, Word document, and nothing is coming. My notes out here are all blank. And and then finally you just ask yourself, why did I start the story? What is he going through? Well, if you're running a business, you ask yourself, why did I start this business? What problem am I solving? How can I enrich the lives of my customers, right? How can I add more value to people, right? I think ask those questions. And when you ask yourself, when you're reading in terms of writing, how can the actions of this character add more value to it? How can I add more value to the story? Ask those basic questions: how, the what, the who. This action, how is it going to impact? And that's how you get the idea. It's a lot of conversation with your own mind. It's talking to yourself.
Yeah.
And it's a very isolated process, but you have to go through it, right? And if you watch a film called Walt Before Mickey, it's the Walt Disney story before Mickey Mouse, right? He watched Walt Disney. Walt Disney is an amazing guy. He's created this company called the Walt Disney Company, which is it's a company I truly admire and look up to, and I love their work and their characters. But watch this film called Walt Before Mickey. Right, it's the most therapeutic film on Netflix. It's on Netflix, it's streaming worldwide. It's the Walt Disney story before Mickey Mouse, and you will see his process. It's a lot of failure. It's constant failure. It's constant, and you'll find inspiration in daily life. Maybe a helper of yours will come and he will tell you something, but you have to get yourself out there, interact with the world. Don't disconnect completely, and give yourself the chance to talk to yourself, right,
So
and have a conversation with yourself.
let me isolate for 1 minute, because for you, the concepts you're saying are so ingrained in what you're doing, but for listeners, there's so much fresh information in what's going on. Not that no one's ever said fail forward before, but basically what you're saying is when people fail, they normally criticize and knock themselves down and start believing they can never succeed. What you're suggesting to people, from what I'm hearing, is that of course you might do that, but allow yourself to fail forward and allow that failure to bring you to a place where you just say, I will not give up. This is what my intention is. Talk to me about failing forward. Talk to me about how you do, like here you are, you're writing, your writer's block, you have this goal to do it, you're impassioned, you're alive, you want to create this movie, you've got an idea of what you're doing, and you just sit down and you sit down and you sit down and nothing's coming, or you write it and it doesn't feel good, and you go back and you rewrite it again, and you go back and you rewrite it again, and you go back and you rewrite it again, it just doesn't seem to be coming. But you don't lose hope, because every failure brings you closer to success. Talk to me about that philosophy.
So the whole concept of fail forward is, failure is not a full stop, it's just a comma. And, it's a stepping stone. And the whole idea is you got to keep failing, right? Because every time you do something, you're going to have some failure or the other, right? And it's embracing that and taking it in your stride. It's difficult. I mean, now when I say it, it sounds easy. In hindsight, it's like, oh, well, that was easy. It wasn't too difficult. But when it's actually happening, you need to have the patience and the mental agility and what's seen me through this entire process of failing forward, and the reason it sounds so beautiful is because I I envision the end in it. So when I was writing that script, I'm like, this film is going to get made. It's going to be watched in theaters. I'm going to release it theatrically, and my company name is going to present it, and then it's going to go on a big streaming platform. And I would manifest the platform's name as well, and just visualizing that, and then going forward. Just take. So I think begin with the end in mind, and visualize the end. Visualize that. Your almost famous moment. Visualize success. Just visualize it and define. So it's important you define success, right? Because otherwise your goalposts will keep changing and you'll never be happy. So define success, right, and visualize it and work towards it.
I love that.
And no matter what happens on the way, you will see it through. Yeah.
Yeah.
You see, you want to have a goalpost, because if you have a goalpost, you'll work towards it. If you don't have a goalpost, you won't know where to go. You'll just be aimless, right? It'll just be. So you got to have a goalpost. Yeah, that's very important.
I love that, because one of the things I often say to people when I ask them why they're here or what their purpose is, so many times people say to me, I don't know. I don't know what I'm here. And so when you don't have an idea of what your purpose is, when you don't have an idea of where you're going, every road will take you there because you have no idea where you're supposed to be, right? But when you have a clear idea, like even in cars now, we've had them for decades now, these GPS systems that we put a destination in, and even if it gets it wrong or we don't turn in the right place, it'll reroute and it'll show us how to get there. But without a destination, we have no idea where we're going. And so there's a human there's a human operating system that requires that same mechanism that wants to know, where is it you want me to go? And without sort of holding yourself to the failure of, I'm not ever going to get there, just put that, what I hear you saying is just put that destination in, know where it is you want, know what you want to do with your book, with your movie, with your business, with your life, and always allow the human operating system to take you there. So with that in mind, were there places where you, even within the inspiration and the power that you bring to what you do and the passion that you bring to what you do, were there places where you said, screw this, I'm not going to do it anymore, I'm just done, I can't do it, this is beating me up too much?
Absolutely. Okay, absolutely. And if I said no, I would be lying. Absolutely. There are days where you just feel like giving up. There are days you just feel like giving up and you're like, this is an utter waste of time. I'm a waste of space. This script is utter shit. It's not even worth wiping. And that's normal, Get it out of your system, right? And breathe, right? React and breathe and emote yourself. If you're angry, take it out. I'm a very vocal person. If I like someone, I'm very vocal about it. If I dislike someone, I may not say it out loud, but you'll probably see it. Or I might just say, listen, man, what you're doing is pissing me off. It's really annoying, and just take it out, because I don't like keeping it in me. Right? So even if I'm feeling something, I express it, right? And that's very important. If you feel like crying is beautiful. Crying is a very beautiful thing. It heals your body, right? So this whole false pretext of crying is weak. No, crying is beautiful. Cry, like when you're hit against the wall, just break down and cry, and let your body heal. And next morning when you wake up, you'll feel lighter and ask yourself, why am I doing this? And it's a conversation with yourself, and you'll be like, I want to make a film. This is my true calling, and it's a beautiful story, and you'll figure out a way. The failures have been, one is completing the script, and after the script is done, getting yourself out there, putting it to the studio ecosystem, the producers, the distributors, going through that rejection. I became a producer on this much later. Eventually there was a studio that I went through a lot of rejection and constant multiple companies rejected it because I was a new director, unknown guy, brown man with a white name no one's heard of, right? And that's totally fine. And and at every meeting I walked out, I asked myself, what did I learn from this meeting? If they gave me some feedback on my script and I liked the feedback, if I felt it was good, I would take it, because that was free feedback. I didn't have to pay for it. I went for a meeting, he gave me some feedback, and that's nice. Let me take it. Let me make my film better, because it makes me look smarter, right? I finally came across a studio that agreed to produce my film. So this was in 2016, late 2016. My journey started in 2015, March 2015, April 2015 is when my journey started. I started writing the film in May 2015. But finally, I got a studio to say yes in 2016. That's again 2 years of constantly being at it. But I used to go to every meeting with hope, and I used to tell myself, today this is going to happen, Jonathan. Today this is going to happen. I would put on a jacket, put on a tie, a nice pocket square, comb my hair well, and I would go out with a lot of positivity, and I would say, and even if the previous encounter with that same person was bad and they would call you for a second round of meetings,
Yeah.
I was going and saying, okay, maybe he had a bad day, giving the benefit of doubt. So I finally got a studio on board, and they said yes in 2016, early 2016, and I wasted a year of my life there because nothing happened. They acquired the film. They promised we'll make it at a certain time and a certain budget. And while I was sitting in, they gave me an office, a cabin, right? I felt validated and important. Suddenly, my family's like, "Oh, this guy's out of the house. He's going to a place." When I come into office, two, three people stand up and greet me. They ask me for my 2 pennies worth of advice, and suddenly I'm in a workspace. I'm feeling validated. I'm like, okay, now I'm a motion picture director. This is like working for Paramount or Walt Disney. I'm in the game. And I'm sitting in this office, and the film never got made, and I got very pissed off. I
Yeah.
told myself, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm going to take matters into my own hand because all these people sitting out here are no better than me. They have two eyes. They have, okay, yes, they have more money than me. They have a big company, big office. But you know what? Movies are not made in offices. Movies are made by people with imagination, people with drive. And that's me, right? And it's a conversation I had to have with myself. It took a year to have that conversation. Probably wasted a year if you look at it in the grand scheme of things. But it's a process, right?
Yeah.
And
You didn't
I went to
waste
the
it.
boss.
I don't think you wasted any time at all. I think a year is a very short time to learn that lesson.
And then I went to the boss of the company. I said, you paid me so much money for the script. Here's the check. I'm buying my script back. I'm going and making this on my own. And just to let you know, everyone working out here, no one's driven. The only reason this company is surviving is because you're a hardworking guy. Keep at it. God bless you. And I took my script and I left that place on a good note. Obviously, I wish everyone well, and they cut a
Yeah.
cake for me as well as I parted. And then I'm like, okay, now I just bought my script back. Right now, I got to set up my own office. So I had to go set up my own company, learn the legal aspect of things. I had to learn law. I had to learn accounting, and I decided I'm going to produce this film. So I set up my own office. I took up my first office. This is 2017. So in Feb 2017 is when I set up my office. I registered my company in Jan 2017. So new year, new company, and I took up my office, and then we just started. We just kept at it, and there were hurdles that would come every day, right? There were operational hurdles, there were money hurdles. How do you get the money together? I went and borrowed money at 18% interest. I had to convince a bank. I had to convince some people to become my guarantor because I didn't have collateral to give.
Yeah.
And I put in all my money. But I just, I was so driven to make the story. I made it happen. There was this delusional obsession with me the story and seeing this through. That and I used to go in with so much energy, and then the guy was like, okay, let's just see if he can help the guy out. But one thing I did was I was very good at profiling, right? Because when you're asking someone for help or asking someone for something, be specific with what you want from that person. Introduce yourself, be polite, be courteous, thank them for their time, right? And tell them, I am doing this, right? And if you can help me out with this way, you have run a company and these other services you offer. If you can offer this service to me, it'll really help me, elevate my business. So tell him what exactly you need from him and what's in it for him,
Yeah.
right? What's he or she gaining out of it. And that's something I was very good at. I always knew to talk to the right people at the right time, and I had no shame in asking for help. If I did not know something, if I'm bad at something, I have no shame in saying it. There's a lot of things I'm not good at. No problem, right? There are other people who are good at it. Reach out to them, right? Like there are a lot of things I don't know, and I have no shame in saying I don't know it. I'll go figure it out, or I'll find someone who knows it, and I'll request them to help me see it through.
For,
So that's been the journey.
for
Yeah.
those of you who are listening in on this podcast, what I want you to do is bookmark it. And I want you to just listen. So many things are being given in the course of a few moments here that are really nuggets, beautiful pieces of gold. That if you can, here's the beauty: when creative people make a project, they create a movie or a book, or they write something, or they do something, or a theater, or whatever it is they do. They tell the story of human life in a way that it comes across and touches people. In order to do that, most of the time, the human that has written that or been involved in creating that has to also be a human that understands that human story and that touches life. as you hear Jonathan speaking today, it's so easy to just get caught in his passion and enjoy his passion and almost miss like so many of the points that he's saying. But it's the points that he's saying that will impassion you. It's the points that he's saying of what happens when you lose hope, what happens when you turn the corner, what happens when somebody gives you the accolades that you've been always looking for, but then doesn't do anything with them. What happens in your life when you feel accepted and loved and taken care of and important, but then there's nothing behind it because what they're creating for you isn't happening. What do you do? So many people will sit in that office and just wait and feel like I can tell everybody I'm with this studio and they bought my film, and die with the film never coming out. What would it take for you as a listener to have this passion to say, I don't care who supports me, I don't care who thinks I'm great, I want to move this thing forward so that it happens? I can tell you, um, in writing the Mosaic, one of the characters that I love is the Trashman. And the Trashman he comes by every week. And every week we put outside in trash cans the trash that we no longer want. And he takes it, puts it in his truck, grinds it up, and drives it away. Well, in my story, Mo was walking along the streets, and the trash man stopped in the middle of his ride and looked at him and said, do you have any trash? Mo wasn't carrying anything. The streets around him were perfectly pristine and clean. And he looked at the trash man in the truck and he thought, what are you, crazy? Like, what? I don't have anything in my pockets. I don't have anything on my back. What are you asking me? Do I have any trash for him? And he's just about to say, what are you, crazy? And like lay into him. And he sees the
Mm.
trash man's eyes. And when he sees the trash man's eyes, just like you saw the lift boy's eyes, when he sees his eyes, he realizes, hold it, he isn't talking about physical trash. He's talking about, is there something in me that's blocking me from having what I want? And when he realized that, he said, oh my God, I have a lot of that. And the trash man got out of his truck and he said, don't worry, I'm here, I'll help you. Just pour everything that you don't want. Pour all these things that you're talking about, all these pains, all these sorrows, all these sufferings, just give them into me. Here's a trash can. Just put them all in this trash can. And what it reminded me of is when you were saying that when you get angry, let it out. When you cry, let it out. When we're so scared, we hold on to all this trash in our lives and we don't let it out. When we let it out,
Yeah.
then we get a chance to experience what our life is like for even a moment. The beauty of the trash man in my story is when you put all of that into his trash can, suddenly you have a moment to realize what you are like when you're no longer carrying that within you. You can always go to the
Yeah.
trash can and get it back.
Yeah.
But in this moment, who are you when you're not carrying all that stuff with you? How light do
Mm.
you feel? How different do you feel? And those are just like, those are things that Jonathan's already said in the way he's presenting it. But I just want our listeners to slow it down, to stop, to pause for a minute with ideas that he's saying, because there's so much here that will turn your whole venture from a creation to a success. What what was your relationship like with your father? Was that mirrored in the Lift Boy?
So yeah, that's, my father has always wanted the best for me, like any child, right? And he always saw a lot of potential in me. He thought I would be a good, brand manager, marketing manager, advertising professional, because I studied advertising and I never worked in. I was selected by Unilevers and Procter and Gamble to work in their marketing department, and their future leaders program. And I was also hired. I also turned down a job at Philip Morris. Uh, because I went to Philip Morris office and it was so nice and posh, and the loos was so pristine and clean. It looked like a 7-star hotel. But when I went there, I'm like, what are these guys doing? These guys are selling tobacco, and it's just ruining people's lives. I was keen on setting up a medical marijuana division for Philip Morris, and I shared with them a plan and proposal, but it was too ahead of its time. So I just realized, I went there and I came out saying, this is not something I can do. So same thing. I never pursued the corporate job, and my father always felt that I was qualified and I had the qualities of a leader to lead in a corporation, which I never saw through. I never pursued that. So there's always been a bit of banter at home, and there's always been that. But it comes. I know it comes from love. I know it comes from a space of love, and he genuinely wants the best from me, like any father across the world. So that is there in the Lift Boy. If you look at the fathers and
Yeah.
banter in the Lift Boy, that's very much there. And I mean, I was a bit rude to my father, when I was 23, 24, and when I was younger, basically, when I was from the age, from the teenage phase to about 23, 24, making the Lift Boy completely transformed me. I became more compassionate and more caring. I saw where he came from, right? I saw all the sacrifices he made to, put food on the table, because I kept calling my dad a corporate slave, but he became a corporate slave so that I could be free
Yes. Yeah.
and liberated,
Yeah.
right? So it was very hypocritical of me to say that. And my mom was a school teacher, and so yeah, they've done a lot, so for them, if you ask me what have my parents accomplished in their life, the Lift Boy is theirs, not mine, right? It's their masterpiece. It's their I'm the guy who made the Lift Boy, but I'm their product, I'm their offspring. And it's
Beautiful.
so the Lift Boy is basically theirs. It's the universe. So yeah, it's not me. So
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 what
yeah,
was
so that's evident in the film. Yeah.
when they look back on the Lift Boy, when they watched it for the first time
Yeah.
with you,
Yeah.
what happened
Yeah.
for you? What, like, because all there was that banter, but what did they see in the Lift Boy? Was it how was that, did that moment go?
So my mother loved the movie. My mother loved the film, right? And my dad always loves big movies, like the Baz Luhrmann movies or the James Cameron movies, Terminator, Titanic,
Right.
the big blockbuster Indian films, with the big stars. And he saw Lift Boy for the first time, a rough cut, and he slept off. And
Wow.
next morning at the breakfast table, he's like, "Listen, kid, this is fine. You made a decent film. You made a film. You proved a point, but next time you make a commercial film, make something that's, you know." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, Dad. I will do that. But this film was for me. I made this film because it's personal." And that phase went by, and exactly about 6, 7 months later, the film released in theaters. And my father booked a ticket for himself and a friend of his to go watch the film in a theater. I wasn't there, and the show was houseful.
Wow.
And when the movie ended, the film got a standing ovation. It got a 2 minute. It's a random theater. I didn't know. Maybe some people knew me. Maybe some people did not know me. I don't know who was there. Uh, it got a standing ovation, and people were clapping. And my father was like, "Wow, there are people who watch these kind of movies." And then it went to festivals, and people. Uh, a guy called him up and said, "Hey, I want to ask you something. This guy, Jonathan Augustin, is he your son?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Why? What happened?" "Oh, I saw his movie called The Lift Boy. It's on Netflix. It's an amazing film. Tell him I'm a big fan of his." And so yeah. So now he's happy that I think they react to what people say and what it's
Totally.
the yeah. So my mom always loved the film, and she was like, my mom's a school teacher, so she's like, "Listen, no matter what, enjoy the journey. It's not about the destination, right?" She's like, "I like your movie. Even if there's no one there, I'm going to cheer for it because I like it, right?
Love it.
And irrespective of the fact that you're my son or you're not my son, I like the film, right? I'm reacting to the film that I watch these kind of movies. My mom actually goes and patronizes for she goes and buys tickets for such movies and goes and watches them. So if like an offbeat film comes up, my mom's probably one of the first people who goes and buys a ticket and goes and watches it in a theater. Whereas my dad, on the other hand, watches commercial movies. But
Yeah.
when he experienced that standing ovation, when he experienced the standing ovation, he was like, this is good. And then when Netflix picked it up, and again it got, Channel 4 picked it up, it went to festivals, people are calling him. I think that kind of gave him, he feels very happy. He's very proud right now.
Yeah.
And he's like, "I think you know what you're doing." I'm like, "Hell yeah, I know what I'm doing. Don't worry about that. It's just that it takes time, like when these things take time. And if you look at any great, if you look at any artist, if you look at Michelangelo or Van Gogh, you should them today, right? But if you ask them during that time, I don't know if anyone really appreciated Picasso or Van Gogh or Michelangelo. As much as we do today.
Yes.
So I
When
think
I
if you just live with that and enjoy the, sorry, go on. Yeah.
No, it's all good. When I was at Hay House, I would sit with people that changed the lives of millions of people. They were my friends. and I would sit with them and talk with them,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
people would come up to them and say, "Wow, what a, you're like an overnight success." And one of the women in particular that I was very close friends with looked at me afterwards and said, "Yeah, it only took 40 years to become an overnight success." Everybody goes through that process, however long it
yeah,
takes. I have,
yeah.
I have an interesting question that keeps bubbling up in my head, so I was trying to push it aside because I didn't want to take too much of your time, but I want to ask this question if you don't mind. For
Please.
someone who has a philosophy of failing forward,
Yeah.
what do you do when you get success? Is success suddenly a foreign entity because you're so used to responding to the failures that you have? Is failure a hard thing for you to, is success a hard thing for you to embrace?
So I enjoy it. I mean, I open a bottle of wine, or I go buy. I'm not big on drinks, but beer, wine, something like that. I buy a massive pizza, buy a nice cheesecake, and I enjoy it. I indulge in absolute gluttony, and I pass out watching movies on Netflix. That's what I do, and then I forget about it because I'm moving on to the next. See, I'm very impatient. I'm already working on my next film, and that's bigger and it's much more difficult, and I have no clue how I'm going to make it. Every day I wake up with anxiety, like I've never made a film before like this, of this scale and magnitude. Think of it as India's Indiana Jones. My next film is an adventure horror film. It's the story of India's leading paranormal investigator, Manu Voodoo, and his trials and tribulations. It's how he goes undercover in this haunted hospital as a ward boy to investigate hauntings. It's called Ward Boy Manu Voodoo, right?
Wow.
And it's an adventure horror film. It's think of it as India's Indiana Jones for adventure horror. And it's big in scale and aesthetic also. It's different, so that's keeping me going. So for me, and the thing is, I define success like when I was making the Lift Boy. The first metric of success was it has to be released theatrically. When that happened, then again the goalpost changes. Okay, we have to syndicate it more. We have to sell it more. It has to go to it has to sell. We release it in UAE. So we did India on 18 Jan 2019. We did UAE, that is Middle East, on 18th April 2019. We did Taiwan 2nd August 2019. We were in theaters in Taiwan for 3 weeks. So the goalpost keeps changing, right? But you enjoy those few minutes, right? And I enjoy the journey, right? Because and keep pushing yourself. So like for me, if you ask me, is success a place? No, it's a journey. It's not a
Love it.
destination. It's a journey because it keeps changing, right? And
Love it.
enjoy it. I mean, indulge in debauchery. One night, go out on an epic bender. Enjoy yourself, or do nothing. Just look at the sky. Do whatever, but enjoy, pat yourself on the one night, and don't take yourself temporary. The success does not last. The standing ovation is temporary. When the standing ovation happens, I enjoy it. I'm like, oh wow, this feels good, and then I forget about it. I'm like, that was only for,
Yeah.
because I know if I cock up the next film, I know if I mess up the next film, people might probably come and throw their shoes at you. So that anxiety of making a good film is always there. So it's a combination of anxiety. It's a combination of ambition. It's anxiety, ambition, and this desire to do something good that kind of keeps me going.
Do you ever think the anxiety will disappear, that you will just trust that what is coming through you comes through you, and you will trust it without that anxiety? Or do you just feel like the anxiety? I remember talking to and being friends with a surgeon. He was one of the best surgeons in the
Yeah,
world. He was the only
yeah,
surgeon that was able to operate on people that had a certain type of cancer or tumor in their spine. No one else would operate on them. And I said to him, "What do you feel when you're about to do that surgery?" He said, "If I don't feel this bead of sweat you're going down the center of my back, when before I go in, I don't do the
yeah,
surgery. I cancel it." And I said, "Why
yeah,
is that so important to you?" He said, "Because I want to know that anxiety. I want to know that fear before I go in. And then I want to capitalize on that fear and turn it into a passion to do this the right way." And so I was always
yeah,
inspired by that, because you would think he's done this over and over. He's the best doctor, best surgeon. He's one of a few that can do these operations, and he's world renowned. And even he has that bead of sweat that goes down his back. So do you think that anxiety is something that you will always carry with you, or do you think that it will one day melt in the trust of knowing that you have the connection to something greater that will do this through you?
Danny, I need the anxiety. I thrive on it. That kind of keeps me going. That keeps me grounded. It just makes me realize that in the grand scheme of things, we're not even a particle, right? Because trust me, we can't control any of this. You make a film. Who knew the pandemic is going to come? I had planned a theatrical release in South Africa, North America, France, Singapore in June 2020, right? This month, my film will have released theatrically in these countries, and I would have probably made a bit of money there, which is nice. Add that money, the power of compounding works well, and the pandemic struck and everything is gone for a toss. But in that, out of anxiety, I'm like, okay, now I have to do something. Let me write to all the platforms. And out of that anxiety and the desire to, make things work, it's a combination of anxiety and ambition that when you put that together, right?
Love it.
And then Netflix happened, right? So I need the anxiety. I thrive on it. If that goes away, then I don't think I'll be there. I'll be able to function. Yeah.
I love it. Let me, I could talk to you forever, and I hope, honestly, Jonathan, this is the beginning of our relationship together, and we'll have many more conversations
Absolutely.
like this, because I
Absolutely.
love this conversation. I end every podcast by asking a similar question. When you look out the window at the world we're living in today, is this the world
Yeah.
that you always dreamed of handing over to your children or to future generations?
No. Not
It,
at all.
what would one thing be that you could invite people to do that would move it from a world that is not the world that you want to hand over to your children to a world that you would be more happy to hand over to your children? Because left to its own devices, things just carry on and get momentum. So if we don't do anything, the momentum of the direction we're moving in is going to just continue and get stronger. Do you have a suggestion of what people could do from the life that you've lived and the challenges that you've faced, of what you would suggest? What's one thing you would invite people to do to make this world a more pass-onable world to future generations?
So I think one thing is make happiness a state of mind and define success by happiness, right? Don't look at the materialistic thing. I think define success by happiness. Just be happy, right? That's one. And every day, this is something I practice. Do one small deed of kindness, right? It doesn't have to cost you much. That act of kindness could just be offering someone a cup of tea or saying thank you to someone. And you know what the best thing all of us can do, and it costs no money, is give people your time. Someone you would never spoken to, acknowledge them, thank them, appreciate them, like your domestic staff, a janitor in your building, right? Your watchman, your lift boy. Ask him if he's had a meal. Ask him who's there at home. That one act of kindness. So initially, I started by doing this once. Like my whole target was to impact someone's life in some way, shape, or form at least once a week. And now I made this a daily thing. It could be a very tiny thing, and make this a habit, right? And try to request everyone in your circle to do the same thing as well. Make it a state of mind. Make kindness a state of mind, and look at kindness quotient. Don't look at your intellectual quotient or your emotional. We should have happiness quotient. We should have compassion quotient. We should have kindness quotient. Do small acts of kindness every day. Just do one thing every day, right? And trust me, to become a way of life. Automatically, you start doing 3 things. You start doing 4 things. It'll happen organically. But make it a way of life. Just see if you can make people feel good, uplift people in some way, shape, or form. And trust me, the world will be much more beautiful. The nicer you are to people, the nicer they are to you, right? Think good for them. Genuinely want them to succeed. If there's something you can do to make someone successful, do it, right? If someone sends you a cold email, and even if you don't know how to help them, point them in the right direction. Maybe make that effort of making a few calls. I get cold emails sometimes, people asking me, today someone wrote to me saying they've done a series, right, a talk show series where they're doing motivational talks with chartered accountants. They're dealing with financial motivation, right, how to manage your money. And she's made a series out of it. She's done about 6 episodes, and she's like, do you know this? Can you help me syndicate this? And I'm like, I don't know, but give me a week's time, I'll find out. And I spent 10 minutes making some calls, and I've got someone who's interested and who would probably be happy to host it on their platform and pay us some money for it. So I'm going to look them tomorrow. So that's my good karma for the day, right? I've
Love
done
it.
that introduction. It cost me nothing. I just had to figure out, I wrote to her saying, listen, I don't know anyone, but give me some time. Let me see. And if I get some leads, I'm going to share the email with you. I'm going to do an intro for you. So do that. See if you can help people in any way, shape, or form. And trust me, life will be much better. A lot of people in the corporate world, when they get to a level, when they become that at some point they were at the bottom of the pyramid. Right.
Yes.
And if you're successful, it is your responsibility to send the lift back down and get people up.
I
right?
love that. I love that.
So
Jonathan, I'm going to put thank you so much for being here with us. I'm going to put all of your
thanks, Danny.
information
Pleasure.
into the show notes. But if people want to get in touch with you, what do you recommend? What's the best way to find you, get in touch with you, see what's going on? We'll have all those links there, but highlight the one that's.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one is I'm there on Facebook. I'm fairly active. I respond very fast. Instagram, but this email is the best way because I always check my emails every 6-7 hours. Again, that comes from the anxiety of having a clear inbox. I don't like having a. So I respond very fast. I normally within 48 hours I clear out every email. Right. So my email ID is JA. That's J for Jonathan, A for Augustine, @Caroline.pictures. That's CAROLINE. There's a full stop and there's pictures, PICTURES. So you just Google Jonathan Augustine, Caroline Pictures. You'll get our website, and the email ID is J for Jonathan, A for Augustine, A, that's JA@Caroline.pictures.
And I'm going to put all that in the show notes. Thank you so much for
Lovely.
being here. And Mosaic people, thank you so much for coming. I just want to summarize for 1 second a couple of the things that I heard. Take time with this podcast. There is so much packed into this podcast that I want you to just listen to it slowly, pause it for a few moments. You don't have to race through this one. Pause it when an idea comes that intrigues you, sit with it. Let it speak to you, listen to it, let it have a dialogue with it, just like Jonathan talked to his characters. The beauty of life is that everything in it is a reflection of who we are. What I love about the lift boy that Jonathan did, is he takes a simple example of a boy who sits in an elevator and pushes buttons that takes people up and down, something that they could easily do on their own. But it's a service that he provides that just makes them feel a little bit taken care of. But he watches them as they go up in life and as they come down in life. He watches them as they enter into life and they leave life. There's something so innocent in that process. What's the world saying to you in the jobs that you're doing, in the worlds that you're creating, in the things that you're doing? How do you see more than what you see? The Mosaic to me is all about, how do you see what you don't see? We all know what we see, and some of us don't even know what we see. Some of us are just racing so quickly that we don't even see what we see. But for those of you who do see what you see, how could you slide all of that to the left for a moment and see what's behind what you see? What's the story behind the thing that you see? And then slide that to the left. What would happen for you if you all of a sudden were able to see the world differently than the way you see it now? What would that allow you to open up in yourself that you can't open up right now? When you get to those areas where there's writer's block, when you get to those areas where you don't feel inspiration, when you get to those places where you don't feel like you want to go on because it's just too hard, slide it all to the left and just see what's waiting there to come to you. Because what would happen if possibly everything you needed was right in front of you, if you could just get out of your own way? Jonathan, again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for creating this exquisite movie called The Lift Boy. People, I want you to go to the links that I'm showing you so that you can see it. It's my honor to have you, and thank you again. We'll see you next time. Until then,
Thank you,
God
Danny.
bless.
Thanks for having me.
My absolute
God
honor.
bless you. Thank you.
God bless.